Monday starts with a bit of new shop decor. Saw that on Amazon, thought it was pretty fun. Got a couple customers that applies to more than others. Anyways, what's going on here on Monday? So pretty much the entire day was spent up here on the 2000 Carbon Black. Exhaust system went back on, a bunch of underbody fasteners. Finally got the car down temporarily off the lift to free up our old rocker trim, get the new one installed there. Tried to fix some of this bodywork here. It's been bent in. It's significantly better than it was, though it's not as good as it was 20 years ago, thanks to a good old friend called the Hammer there. New rear fender liners are in. Talk about a pain in the ass. I even went and checked the part numbers to make sure I didn't buy like 530 rear liners. They just did not want to fit. And I think there's been some, I don't know if it's body work, accident damage, whatever it was just really difficult to get them lined up. And there's a couple places where the bolts stretch a little bit, like that's not perfectly flat. But they're in, all hardware accounted for. Then we had an issue where the lock and unlock beeps were not working. The first thing I did was check coding in the cluster, light module, body module, whatever it is, and it was turned on. I toggled it off, toggled it back on, no difference. So before we put the rear liner in, I checked another speaker I had here, no difference. So I was starting to think, oh, it's probably the light module on Nick's car. Nick's 02 M5, he had that issue, and I'm pretty sure it was a bad light module. So I was about ready to tell him he needed an LCM. Found one more speaker I had, plugged that one in. That one worked and is working consistently and reliably. So it does seem that it was a bad speaker. And in that little pause there, I just clipped that in the rest of the way. That hadn't fully seated. So that is done. Engine's back together, less the belts. It got degreased today. We even had to replace a few jack pads, like someone had broken both the tabs off this thing and then glued it back in place. No, those are cheap parts. So we got that fixed. With the belts off and the engine clean now, we're noticing a pretty substantial amount of play in the water pump pulley, water pump bearing. So I'm gonna have to talk to him tomorrow. And then we've got a really loud AC tensioner pulley there. So we'll have to see if he wants us to do those items at this time, which is annoying. These water pumps have gotten really expensive, and I would be like 5 days out to get one best case. So we'll see what he says tomorrow. This thing came in today, 01 Carbon Black, a 1 of 64 car, kind of a unique spec in that it's got the Le Mans Blue extended leather sport interior. It's got a super, super short shifter in both throws and positioning or shifter height. Pretty sure that's the Z3 shifter in this car. For some reason, it's got a M-Tech front right door sill, though the other ones, at least this one, are correct M5 sills. So my guess is it needed an M5 sill at some point. Someone either ordered the wrong part or that one was cheaper or more available. I don't know. It's got sunshades. It's got M audio. That's an M5 sill too. No PDC. Too bad. Mid 2001 car. Eisenman Race 83mm exhaust with some sort of X pipe. It's super loud. I haven't gotten under it yet, but it's here to get its wheels refinished, and they're not terrible. If I owned this car, I would do them. Though these I've certainly seen a lot worse and have sent a lot worse out to get refinished. But we'll be doing that tomorrow. It's got a rusty caliper up here, super low ride height, and I got a peak in there. They look like Bilstein coilovers. So not my choice, but certainly a higher end setup. Tinted fog lights. I don't know if they're yellow, black grills, M stripes. Haven't even popped the hood yet, so I don't know what's going on under there, but I imagine it's the S62 B50. Sure sounds like one. My 540 cluster came back today. That was quick. Went out to my sublet in Texas to have the needles or stepper motors repaired. He said it was just poorly aligned. I don't know what that means. I tried to click the needles back in there. It didn't work. But now it's nice and smooth, which is nice. Initially, I plugged it in and we had an airbag light for seatbelt belt tensioner. Let's see if that's coming back. I could not get it to clear. I put another cluster in and the light was there. So I thought, okay, well, looks like we're gonna have to diagnose that. So I put this cluster back in and now the light won't come back. And I've tried buckling and unbuckling the passenger seats. We'll just have to keep an eye on that moving forwards and see if that's an issue that returns or if it was just some sort of glitch, electrical gremlin of having the cluster in and out several times, which is very possible because that's the whole gateway to the electronic system. For now, I'm not putting in these panels yet. I'm noticing that the pins on the back are starting to get a bit fragile, so I'll drive it a little bit and make sure that that code's not going to return or the cluster doesn't have to come out again. If that is the case, I'll pop the panels back in. Did not have time today or an available lift to get the power steering line in, the cooler to box hose, but I have the part and the washers, so we'll get to that later this week. Back over here on the 01540 that's been here since 2013 now. Feels like it, doesn't it? I guess sitting over the weekend, car didn't like that. The key was not even in the ignition. No lights were on, no drains, no battery load. Would not start today. Wouldn't really take a jump either. So talked to the customer. He said replace the battery. So we've got a new battery in there, which was a bear to install because this guy's trunk is full of so much stuff. We had to kind of push everything over to the left and get the door open. Usually I'd take the door off, but I couldn't. There's just too much crap in there. So it is being picked up tomorrow. It is all but paid for. All he's got to do now is cover the battery part and installation labor. And when that's done, this will be out of here and we'll be freed up. So work scope on this car, we're jumping all over the place here. I mentioned the wheels. It's going to be, and I could hear just moving it in and out of the shop, the CSB in this thing is shot. Tink, tink, tink every time you change gears between first and reverse. So exhaust comes off, drive shaft comes out, rebuild the drive shaft, put the drive shaft back in, put the exhaust back on, refinish the wheels, replace battery negative ground cable per customer request. And I guess we're not touching the shifter. I would have asked him about that. He didn't mention it. It's not in the work order. So this should be a quick in and out. Longest thing will be the wheels. We'll try to get those things picked up tomorrow. A little bit of clerical work. So our unlabeled parts box here, sometimes control arms come with hardware and we just get extras and it starts to get messy. I've just been throwing everything in here because they're unlabeled parts. Well, I pulled out probably around 125 different random nuts. So I came over to the nuts box and went through there and just, matched them up visually and thread pitch and technically, and added like $290 in inventory from our unlabeled box into the proper bags and labels. Found a few bolts and a few hose clamps as well. These are 346 hose clamps, but they're slightly thicker. They're an Oedeker brand, not the genuine BMW. It's the same thing. It's a perfectly usable part, but because there is a difference, I'm leaving them here and just making a mental note that those would be power steering hose Oedeker clamps, where it mates, at least on the E39 M5, to the pump and then up at the reservoir too. And this is an E60. I don't know why I'm looking at that. This is the Sepang car, which is awaiting available time and man hours, probably tomorrow, to pull the drive line back out, replace the CV joint on the end of the drive shaft, and throw out bearing, test drive this thing. Hopefully that fixes the issues. If not, we're thinking it's a diff. So a lot of black cars. We've been going through a lot of carbon black recently. Not much titanium silver. Can't say I'm too upset about that, but that was kind of all we had in here for a while, and now they're all carbon black. Weird how it goes through phases. Anyways, 8:40, time to go home. I've got leftover ribeye from last night, pasta from 2 nights ago. It's going to be a leftover night. Do some emails, get the quote out to this guy, see how he wants to proceed. And we did pick up a second shop cart today with 2 and 3 techs in here working at once. We just had tools everywhere. We had stacks of tools over here because someone was working on this lift. On the table in front of that lift, we had piles of tools. Then over here on this wooden bench, you could find tools there. So it's like, where is the 16 millimeter 6-point deep well 3/8 drive socket? Oh, I don't know, check one of these 4 places. And it was horrendous for our workflow to have to walk around the whole shop digging for tools. So the rules are going to be, there'll be 2 carts. I'll get the new one set up just like this with the rubber mat, with the magnetic things for sockets, with the tool trays, and with the shop towels here, and probably some part storage bins on the bottom. And then if we do something big like remove timing covers, these things are perfect for that. You can just write on them in Sharpie and label everything, and then when you're done, you just take brake clean to it and the Sharpie comes right off. So $4 at Harbor Freight, hell yeah. So we'll get a second cart set up like this. I think there'll be 1 per tech, and just have your own cart. You clean it up at the end of the day. You keep it organized how you like. Some people like to just throw everything on here and they know where it is. I'm much more organized. I like to keep everything laid out, nothing overlapping. Sockets here are ranging in size. It keeps 6 points over here, and then your Torx and Allens and Phillips and flat and whatever over there. Just helps with my workflow. But having 2 carts, I think, is going to be tremendous in here if we're able to have the discipline to keep that cart, know where it is, know it's yours, and know what's on it.